He stood in our living room and gave me the ultimatum. You apologize to Scarlett or we're divorced. A simple binary choice. That was his assumption. He assumed I was the same woman he'd been gaslighting for months. The reality? I had already found his silver bullet folder. So I smiled, I agreed, and I chose option 3. It's strange. What you'll accept. The small, corrosive compromises you make just to keep the peace. To be the cool, trusting wife he claimed he wanted. For years, my world was small. I'm a freelance graphic designer. I work from home. My studio is quiet. My days are methodical. Mason was my balance. Or so I told myself. He was the charisma, the social energy, the one who organized the dinners and bought the expensive wine. He was the perfect husband. And everyone in our glossy suburban circle told me how lucky I was to have him. Lucky. I suppose that's one word for it. My isolation, it was a vulnerability. He knew it, he cultivated it. My world centered almost entirely on him. And by extension, on her, Scarlett. Mason's inseparable college best friend. She was married, too, to Elijah, a wealthy and, more importantly, absent tech executive. Scarlett was the cool girl. Witty, sophisticated, one of the guys. She had this entire persona built around the idea that her bond with Mason was just a deep soul friendship. Something a lesser person, a small person like me, could never possibly understand. My intuition, of course, screamed from day one. You can't mistake the frequency. The late-night texts that were always deleted. The work meetings that were always just the two of them. The private jokes. The way he looked at her when he thought I wasn't watching. But I am not a confrontational person. I'm patient. I'm methodical. I would rather absorb a small hurt than start a large, ugly fight. And Mason? Mason is a high-functioning narcissist. His power isn't physical. It's psychological. He is an expert at gaslighting, at framing shifting, at using such exhausting circular logic that you just give up. I'd try. I'd bring up a credit card charge. A lunch I wasn't invited to. Arya, are you snooping again? You know how much I hate that. She's my best friend. Are you really that insecure? You're going to push me away with this behavior, I'm telling you. Do you see the architecture of it? The pivot? In 10 seconds, the conversation is no longer about his suspicious behavior. It's about my snooping, my instability, my paranoia. I become the perpetrator and he the long-suffering victim. He did this for years. He and Scarlett together. They built this secret parallel life, and the fuel for it was my sanity. They didn't just break my trust in him. They systematically dismantled my trust in myself. The wound wasn't the infidelity. The wound was the gaslighting. I began to believe them. I stopped seeing the few friends I had. I was too embarrassed by my paranoia. I'd sit in my studio, the cursor blinking on a blank screen, and I'd just pick at my cuticles until they bled. I felt unhinged, crazy. My own home, my beautiful, sterile, modern prison. I felt like a guest in it. Constantly monitored, constantly judged, and always found wanting. He hollowed me out and replaced my identity with the crazy wife persona they had manufactured for me. The most symbolic crime? A watch. A beautiful vintage timepiece I'd seen in an antique shop window. I'd mentioned it, loved it. Mason just laughed. It's extravagant, Arya. We have to be smart. 2 weeks later, at a dinner party, I saw it. On her wrist. I remember my blood turning to ice. I looked at Mason. He just winked at her, right over my head. And when I went to the bathroom, I heard them laughing in the hall. When I brought it up later, the gaslighting was profound. He told me it was a different watch. That I was obsessed. That I was trying to create drama. That I was insane. He was so good at it. I almost believed him. And then came the silver bullet. It's poetic, really. Mason's fatal flaw, the flaw of every true narcissist, is arrogance. He genuinely believed he was smarter than me. He mistook my patience for weakness, my quiet for stupidity, and his arrogance. It made him sloppy. It was 3 a.m. He was asleep. Snoring, in fact. Like a baby with no guilt, no fear. I was on his laptop finishing up a joint tax document, and I saw it, a folder. Tucked away, mislabeled. It wasn't even hidden that well. He wanted it, I think. He wanted to keep his trophies. I clicked it. It wasn't just a few texts. It was everything. Years of chats. Hotel receipts proving it wasn't just emotional. Photos, emails filled with the most intimate confessions and the most profound vitriol about me. The room was silent, but my head was like loud. It was the sound of 1,000 shattered pieces clicking into place. The foundation cracking, the facade crumbling. It wasn't a moment of betrayal. That had happened years ago. It was a moment of vindication. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't unreasonable. My intuition had been right all along. I sat there for an hour, just reading. And I remember looking down at my hands. They were perfectly still. I wasn't picking at my cuticles. The habit was just gone. The anxious, self-doubting wife had left the building. The cold, methodical analyst had taken her seat. I didn't explode. I didn't cry. I didn't wake him up and throw the laptop at his head. No, I was methodical. I went to my office. I got a USB drive. I copied the entire folder. And then I waited. I needed to see the final cog in the machine. I needed to see just how far his arrogance would take him. The next evening, I confronted him. Quietly. I didn't show him the folder. I just printed out a single email. One of the hotel reservations. I placed it on the dinner table. He didn't crumble. He didn't apologize. He attacked. You went through my laptop? My private files? His face turned a deep, blotchy red. It was performative rage. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't sorry. He was furious that I had found out, that I had breached his trust. And this is where we came in. He stood over me, right there in our living room. He paced, he gestured. He unleashed the final arrogant salvo. The ultimatum he thought would break me. You, he said, jabbing a finger at me. You have completely broken my trust and embarrassed me. You're obsessed. You're sick. And you are going to fix what you broke. You will go to Scarlett's house, and you will apologize to her in person for this insane, paranoid behavior. You will tell her you were wrong. He leaned in. Apologize to her or we're divorced. The air in the room was sharp. He's not even scared. He's not cornered. He's on the attack. He really believes this is a choice. He really, truly believes I am terrified of him leaving. He was demanding I apologize for his crime. And in that moment, I realized conventional justice was impossible. The institution of our marriage was a sham, and he was its corrupt sole judge. The only path left was to burn the entire system down. I felt this profound calm settle over me, an unnerving, powerful clarity. I let the silence stretch. I watched the confidence in his eyes, the arrogance. He thought he had me. Checkmate. I looked up at him. My voice didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just nodded. You're right. I heard the sound of his sharp, sudden, relieved exhale. The tension left his shoulders. He thought he'd won. He thought this was me, broken. He had no idea what was on the USB drive in my desk drawer. He didn't know I had the whole folder. He wasn't giving me an ultimatum. He was giving me a stage. He actually smiled. A smug, tight little smile. Good, he said, straightening his shirt. Back in control. Good. I'm glad you see reason. I'll set it up for this weekend. Sunday afternoon. At her place, I kept my eyes down. I let him have his moment. Then I looked up and I made my voice soft. The voice of the anxious, self-doubting wife he knew so well. Just one condition, I said. He tensed. What? If I'm really going to apologize? For my paranoia. I let the words hang. I want you both to hear it, and I think Elijah should be there too. So he can hear how crazy I've been. So we can all move on. As a group, I watched his mind work. The cogs turning. He was so arrogant, so high on his own victory that he couldn't see the trap. He saw it as the ultimate humiliation for me. Not just apologizing to his mistress, but apologizing in front of her husband too. He thought I was a glutton for punishment. He couldn't fathom I would ever do anything other than what I was told. He was literally choreographing his own execution. He nodded, expansive and magnanimous. You know what, Arya? That's a great idea. A fresh start. For all of us. I'll call Elijah and make sure he's there. No, I said, still soft. Let me, I should be the one to reach out, to start the healing. He practically beamed. He was so predictable. That night, I waited. I waited until the sound of his breathing deepened. That self-satisfied, guilt-free snore. I went to my office and closed the door. The glow of the monitor illuminated my desk. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel sad. I felt precise. I took 2 new USB drives from my desk drawer. I plugged them in. I methodically, deliberately copied the silver bullet folder. Every text, every photo, every receipt. I labeled both drives. In my neatest all-caps designer font. The proof. He sleeps like a baby. No guilt, no fear. He's dreaming of his victory. I'm building his coffin. One for Elijah, and one for my lawyer. The next morning, I made the call. I let my hand tremble just a little as I dialed. I was, after all, a performer now. He picked up on the third ring. Elijah, hi, it's Arya, Mason's wife. I know this is so strange, but Mason is, well, he's insisting that I come over on Sunday to offer a group apology. He and Scarlett they're really adamant about it. And I wanted to personally call and make sure you'd be there. I let my voice crack just a little. It's just really, really important to me that you hear what I have to say. He was confused. I could hear it. He thought it was some awkward social spat. He sounded busy, distracted, but curious. He agreed. Of course he agreed. He's a man who likes to keep the peace. He was the missing piece. The audience. The trap was set. The pieces were in place. All I had to do was wait for Sunday. The choice he gave me was simple. Apologize to his mistress or our marriage was over. He stood there in our living room, radiating a smug, performative rage, genuinely believing he had me cornered. He assumed he was speaking to the same anxious, self-doubting woman he had spent years meticulously crafting. The crazy wife who was ruining his life with her paranoia. That was his fatal assumption. The reality? I had already found the silver bullet, the hidden folder on his laptop containing years of their secret life. The texts, the hotel receipts, the photos, the vitriol they aimed at me. The discovery hadn't broken me. It had healed me. It proved my sanity was intact. I wasn't a participant in his drama anymore. I was its director. So I agreed. I told him he was right. And then I laid the trap. I insisted that if I was to apologize for my paranoia, her husband Elijah must be there to hear it. Mason, in his infinite arrogance, saw this as my ultimate humiliation. He couldn't fathom it was a strategy. He was choreographing his own execution. Now the pieces are all in place. The audience is assembled. This long, agonizing weekend has finally led to this moment. The drive to their house isn't a walk of shame. It is the overture to the Revelation campaign, the agonizing, suspenseful lead-up to a single public detonation. Sunday, the day of the fresh start, as Mason had called it. I woke up before him. The sun was sharp, almost clinical, cutting across the sterile gray of our bedroom. There was no dread, no anxiety. The pit in my stomach that had been my constant companion for years was just gone. In its place was a profound, cold stillness. I got up, I showered. I chose my outfit with the same meticulous care I would for a client presentation. Not a sad wife outfit. Not a revenge outfit, just a navy blue blouse. Simple gray trousers, understated, professional, the uniform of a person who is here to get a job done. I did my makeup. I looked at my hands, steady, no picking at my cuticles. I was a stranger to myself, in the best possible way. I heard him stirring. When he came out of the bedroom, he was insufferably cheerful. He was humming. He kissed the top of my head, a gesture of benevolent ownership. Morning, hun. Today's the day. A new beginning. I just nodded, sipping my coffee. I'm proud of you, Arya, he said, leaning against the counter. I really am. It takes a big person to admit when they're wrong. To see past their own stuff. This is the woman I married. My internal monologue was already running. The woman you married? The woman you married had intuition. The woman you married had spirit. You systematically dismantled her and replaced her with a ghost. And now, you're praising me for playing the role of the broken doll you created? But I just smiled. A small, compliant smile. I just want this to be over. Exactly, he said, clapping his hands together. That's the spirit. We'll go over, you'll say your piece, and it's done. Clean slate. For all of us. For all of us. The us was him and Scarlett. Elijah and I were just collateral damage. Pieces to be managed. His arrogance was a shield blinding him. He genuinely believed that a few rehearsed words would erase years of profound, calculated betrayal. He believed in his own power that much. He had no idea that the small metal USB drive in the pocket of my gray trousers weighed more than his entire world. The drive. It was only 15 minutes. It felt eternal. We were in his car, of course. The sterile black BMW. He had some cheerful, upbeat music playing. He was coaching me. "Okay, so," he said, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. "Just keep it simple. Scarlett, I'm sorry I overreacted. I misunderstood your friendship with Mason. I've been under a lot of stress, and I let my paranoia get the best of me." Something like that. Be sincere. That's the key. Be sincere. Be sincere. My internal monologue was sharp, precise. Oh, I will be. I have never been more sincere in my entire life. You are giving me stage direction for your own execution, and you are worried about my performance. This is for the best, Arya, a fresh start. We can get back to how we were. You can, maybe get out of the house more. See some people. It's not healthy, all that time alone in your studio. There it is again. The isolation he fostered is now my failing. My freelance career, which pays for half of this glossy life, is now a symptom of my instability. He's not just a liar. He's a revisionist. He's rewriting our entire history in real time. I just looked out the window. The suburbs. Perfect house after perfect house. Perfect green, chemically treated lawns. A land of suffocating politeness, where everything ugly is hidden behind a perfect painted facade. I used to feel suffocated here, now. I just felt like I was the only one who could see the rot beneath the foundations. "Arya, are you listening?" I turned to him. I put my hand on his. I made my eyes wide just a little. The anxious wife. "I'm nervous, Mason, that's all. What if Elijah gets angry at me?" It was a calculated move. I wanted to see his reaction. He laughed. A short, sharp, dismissive laugh. "Elijah? He won't be angry at you. He'll just be glad this is all settled. He's a busy guy. He doesn't have time for this kind of domestic drama. He'll just be relieved you're being reasonable." Domestic drama. He has already framed it for Elijah. He's already fed him a line. He and Scarlett have their story straight. They are the reasonable, long-suffering friends, and I am the hysterical, hormonal wife. He thinks he's anticipated every variable. He's not talking about a fresh start, I thought, my hand closing around the drive in my pocket. He's talking about a fresh start while I'm holding the detonator. I said nothing for the rest of the drive. The nausea and anticipation were a cold, sharp thrill, not a fear. It was the feeling of profound, hidden superiority. We arrived. Their house was like Scarlett. Perfect, but trying too hard. Overly decorated, a stage indeed. This was the stage for the public execution. Mason put his hand on the small of my back. A gesture of support. A gesture of control. He rang the bell. Scarlett opened the door. Her face was a masterpiece. A perfect, practiced mask of pity. Her eyes wide and sympathetic. Her mouth a small, sad frown. "Arya," she said, her voice soft and breathy. "Thanks for coming. This is for the best." That's the second time I've heard that phrase today. It's their mantra. The absolution they've given themselves. "Hi, Scarlett," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Playing my part. We stepped inside. Mason and Scarlett stood together for a moment. A united front. The deep soul friends, he, the protector, she, the victim of my unhinged jealousy. They had practiced this. They had discussed this. They had their lines. Then Elijah walked in from the kitchen. He's exactly as you'd picture, tall, distracted. He was still looking at his phone, the absent tech executive in the flesh. He looked up and his face was a mask of pure confusion. He looked annoyed, like this was a profound waste of his Sunday. "Arya? Mason? What's this all about?" He doesn't know. Mason didn't tell him the why. He just told him to be here. Of course. Mason wouldn't risk Elijah knowing the details. He just needs him here as an audience to my shame, not as a judge of his actions. Scarlett glided over to him, putting a hand on his arm. "It's fine, darling. Arya just has something she wants to clear up. Let's all go sit down." The living room. It was immaculate, soulless, all white and glass. They sat, Mason and Scarlett, a little too close on the large white sofa. A united front. Elijah sat in a separate, severe-looking armchair. And then there was the chair for me. A single, smaller chair placed in the middle, facing them. The hot seat. The defendant's chair. My internal monologue was almost giddy. Look at them. The power couple. They think this is the end of the Arya problem. They think this is the final scene, where the crazy wife is put in her place and the normal people can get on with their lives. They have no idea this is the end of everything. I sat down. I smoothed my trousers. I put my hands in my lap. I could feel the sharp rectangular outline of the USB drive. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. Elijah was looking at his watch. Scarlett was staring at me with that same terrible false pity. And Mason? Mason was looking at me with pride. He was proud of his trained, broken wife. He gave me a small nod. A go-on nod. The director killing his actress, this is it. The moment he's been waiting for. The final public proof of his control. His power. His absolute, unshakable rightness. His fatal, fatal assumption. I took a deep breath. I could feel all three of them looking at me. Waiting. I lifted my head, but I didn't look at Mason. I didn't look at Scarlett. I turned my body just slightly to face Elijah. The drive to their house was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Mason beside me was insufferably cheerful. He was coaching me, giving me stage directions for my own humiliation, telling me to be sincere. He had no idea I'd never been more sincere in my life. He was talking about a fresh start, about how this was for the best, all while I was clutching the detonator in my pocket. His arrogance was a shield. It made him blind. He couldn't fathom that his quiet, patient, broken wife was anything other than what he'd assumed. When we arrived, the stage was perfectly set. Scarlett's home, a monument to suffocating politeness and upper-middle-class gloss. She greeted me at the door with a perfect, practiced mask of pity, and she and Mason stood together, a united front of practiced innocence. They had their script. They thought this was the end of the Arya problem. They even placed me in a chair separate from them, like a child being disciplined. The audience was assembled, the two guilty parties and the one confused innocent man, Elijah, who they'd dragged in to witness my final breaking moment. The silence in that sterile room was heavy. All eyes were on me. Mason gave me that final, arrogant, encouraging nod. Go on, it said. Break for me. He assumed this was his victory. He assumed this was my surrender. He assumed. That's where the wounded analyst steps back, and the director takes her place. The suspense is over. The thrill is gone now. It's just the cold, clean precision of the final act. It's time to pivot. It's time to deliver the apology he demanded. I took a deep breath. I could feel the weight of their expectations. Mason leaning forward, a small, proud smile on his face, waiting for his victory. Scarlett, her face a mask of patronizing sympathy, waiting for the scene to be over. Elijah, confused, annoyed, looking at his watch, waiting for this domestic drama to conclude so he could get back to his life. This was it. The moment he's been waiting for. The final proof of his control. His fatal, fatal assumption. I lifted my head. I didn't look at Mason. I didn't look at Scarlett. I turned my body deliberately in the small, isolated chair. I turned it to face Elijah, who looked up, startled by the direct address. I looked him directly in the eye. Mason. Scarlett, I began. I saw Mason relax out of the corner of my eye. He thought I was starting. You're right. You demanded I come here to apologize. I saw Scarlett's pity mask deepen. She was preparing her "it's okay, dear" response. I held Elijah's gaze. His brow was furrowed. He was the only one in the room who knew something was wrong. And I do, I continued, my voice clear and even. Not a tremor. Not a tear. I owe you, Elijah, an apology. The air left the room. It was a physical thing. I saw Mason's proud smile freeze, then crack. I saw Scarlett's hand, which was halfway to her mouth in a gesture of fake sympathy, just stop. This isn't the script, their faces screamed. This isn't the script at all. Elijah just stared. What? I ignored him. I continued, my voice gaining a cold, hard strength. I am so sorry, Elijah, that I've known about my husband's affair with your wife for weeks. And I didn't tell you sooner. Arya, what the hell are you doing? Mason was on his feet. His face, which had been so smug, was now a blotchy, terrified red. The performative rage was gone, replaced by pure animal panic. Scarlett. Oh, Scarlett. Her mask didn't just crack, it shattered. Her face went a pale, sickly white. She was looking at Mason, her eyes wide with terror. She's not well. She stammered it. Elijah, honey, she's not well. Mason told you she's been paranoid. Mason grabbed onto that line like a drowning man. Yes, Elijah, buddy, listen to me. She's having a breakdown. We're worried about her. She's been under so much stress, I wasn't well, I said. My voice cut through their panicked babbling like a scalpel. They both stopped. The room went dead silent again. I ignored Mason, who was still standing, his hands balled into fists. I ignored Scarlett, who looked like she was about to be physically ill. I kept my eyes on Elijah. She's right, Elijah. I wasn't well. Because for the last 2 years, they have been gaslighting me. They told me I was crazy, insane, paranoid. They made me believe that my own intuition was a form of madness. They made me doubt my own sanity every single day. Arya, shut up! Mason roared. But I found the folder on Mason's laptop, I said, as if he hadn't spoken. I saw Mason flinch, a full-body recoil. It was the first time in our entire marriage I had ever seen a single honest emotion from him. Pure, unadulterated fear. Scarlett just made a small sound. A whimper. I reached into my pocket. My hand was perfectly steady. I pulled out the small black USB drive. You bitch, Mason whispered. The perfect husband was gone. I didn't look at him. I leaned forward calmly, and I placed the USB drive on the glass coffee table in front of Elijah. It made a small, sharp click. In the suffocating silence of that sterile room, it sounded like a gunshot. Elijah's eyes, they were glued to the drive. He wasn't looking at his wife. He wasn't looking at Mason. He was staring at that small, black rectangle as if it were a bomb. Scarlett started to sob. Not quiet, delicate sobs, but ugly, gasping, desperate sounds. Elijah, don't listen to her. She's lying. She's jealous. She's always been jealous of my friendship with Mason. Mason tried one last time. His voice was strained, high-pitched. She's insane, Elijah. That's nothing. It's probably got work files on it she misunderstood. She doesn't understand our connection. They were still trying to gaslight. Even now, even at the very end, Elijah didn't seem to hear them. His hand, which I noticed was trembling slightly, reached out and picked up the drive. He looked at it. Then he looked up, not at me. He looked at his wife, who was now openly weeping, her face buried in her hands. Then he looked at Mason, at his oldest, dearest friend, and I saw the click in his mind, too. He was seeing what I saw. The guilt. The panic. The total pathetic inability to form a coherent defense. He turned back to me. His voice was a hoarse whisper. What is this? I ticked off the inventory. My voice was calm, clear, and factual. Like a designer presenting a final proof. It's everything. It's the text message logs going back 3 years. The late-night ones. The ones where they call me paranoid and unstable, right before they plan their next meeting. The ones where they talk about you, Elijah. About how absent you are and how you don't understand her. It's the hotel receipts. From Mason's work trips to Chicago. And Boston. And that conference in Miami, all of them. With a second name on the room reservation. All of them. Paid for on the company card he told me was for emergencies only. It's the photos, I continued, my voice unwavering. The ones they thought they deleted. At restaurants. In hotel rooms. Pictures I don't think a deep soul friendship usually requires. It's the emails, the vitriol, the long descriptive passages about how difficult I am, how I'm an anchor on his life, how he deserves to be happy. And it's the gifts. A folder of receipts. For jewelry, for dinners I wasn't invited to, including a very specific receipt for a vintage watch. The one Mason told me was too extravagant. It's all there. The room was a tomb. The only sound was Scarlett's ragged breathing. Mason. Oh, Mason, he wasn't red anymore. He was gray. He had shrunk. He looked small. He had slowly, imperceptibly sunk back into the sofa. The perfect husband, the charismatic, powerful, infallible man. He was gone. He was just a hollow shell. A small, cornered boy. His arrogance, his entire power, was based on the assumption that he was smarter than everyone, that his reality was the only one that mattered. And with one $5 USB drive, I had destroyed his reality. I had proven that my reality, the one he tried to dismantle, was the truth. He wasn't a master manipulator. He was just a common, pathetic liar who had finally been caught. I looked at him, really looked at him. There was no anger left, no sadness, just pity, and a vast cold emptiness. He wanted me to apologize, I said, my voice soft again. I was speaking to Elijah, but my words were for all of them. He demanded it. This is the only apology I have. I stood up. The movement was loud in the silence. Mason flinched. Scarlett sobbed harder. Elijah just stared at the drive in his hand, his face carved from stone. Mason looked up at me. His eyes were wide, pleading. He who had never apologized for anything, he who had demanded I apologize for his crime, was now begging me with his eyes. Begging me to, what? To fix this? To take it back? To lie for him one last time? I looked at my husband, my former husband, my jailer, and I gave him my final answer. My voice was even, clear, and final. You gave me a choice, Mason. Apologize to her, or we're divorced. I let the words hang in the air. I let him feel the weight of his own ultimatum. Consider this my answer. I turned. I didn't run. I didn't storm out. I walked. I walked through their perfect, sterile living room. I walked down their perfect, sterile hallway. My footsteps were even, measured, behind me. I heard Elijah's voice. It was a low, terrifying growl. Mason, don't you dare move. But I didn't look back. It wasn't my problem anymore. The truth wasn't my burden anymore. It was theirs. I reached the front door. I turned the handle. I walked out into the sunshine. The air was warm. It felt clean. I walked to my car, which was parked down the street. My car was already packed. My suitcases were in the trunk. My portfolio, my laptop. The second USB drive was already in a safe deposit box, with a copy sent to my lawyer's office. The divorce papers citing adultery had been filed that morning. He assumed, that he was giving me a choice between shame and ruin. He assumed I was the anxious, self-doubting woman he had so carefully manufactured. That was his fatal mistake. He mistook my patience for weakness. He mistook my silence for submission. The reality is that my patience wasn't weakness. It was a period of observation. My silence wasn't submission. It was strategy. The wounded analyst just needed data. And he, in his arrogance, saved it all in one convenient folder for me. This was never about getting him back. It was about getting me back. The gaslighting, it's such a profoundly corrosive thing. They didn't just break my trust in him. They systematically, deliberately dismantled my trust in myself. And finding that folder, it wasn't about finding proof of their crime. It was about finding proof of my sanity. It was the moment I realized my intuition had been right all along. I got in my car. I turned the key. The engine started. I looked in the rearview mirror just once. I saw the perfect, glossy facade of their house, the prison where I was supposed to be executed. I thought about the scene I left behind, the chaos, the screaming, the cold, precise fury of Elijah, the utter, systemic collapse of the two people who had tried to destroy me. It was, in its own way, a kind of poetic justice. He gave me an ultimatum, a binary, impossible choice designed to break me. I chose option 3. I chose me. I put the car in drive. And I didn't look back.